Hello. Welcome to Hope Matters, a production of Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Santa Monica, California. I'm Pastor Shafer, your host for Hope Matters, and we present these programs weekly where we talk to interesting people from around the community and around the nation, even around the world, about the theme of hope, because we believe that hope matters. My guest this week is Silke Pyrlik, who is the Director of Christian Life at Christ Lutheran Church on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, and is also a spiritual director. We'll talk about that in a minute. And a friend of my dear friends, Shirley and Bob Bacher. That's how she came to us. They wrote me a note and said, you should talk to this woman. And so here we are. So welcome, Silke. So glad you could be with us.
Thank you so much. I feel honored to be with you. Absolutely.
Thank you. So tell me what being Director of Christian Life at Christ Lutheran Church on Hilton Head Island means. What's your day like?
Oh, depends if it's a day to day, or let's say pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. So it's pretty much doing everything. So I have this title because when we started this, we couldn't nail it down to just, Director of Education or just Director of Faith Formation. So I work with the youth, but I also work with adults. I work on faith formation. I have done strategic planning. So I have also done administrative stuff. Right now, we are working on a new pictorial directory that will be, online and as an app. So all those things. I have given messages in the service. I have created actually a faith encounter that is called Connected. That is a little bit like a worship service faith formation class combined. That is a little bit newer. This is actually how I got to meet Bob and Shirley Bacher. So they found us doing this and they liked the topics that we did, and this is how they came to be. So I do a little bit of everything. I have always been supporting, various pastors. I have been here for 14 years now, and it's a part-time position too. So I'm only here technically half a day, but you know how it is. There's always stuff coming up in the afternoon and on the days off. But I love what I'm doing, so it's okay. But there's also time for other things, for other passions.
And some of your other passions include being a spiritual director. What is a spiritual director in our Lutheran tradition?
I love being a spiritual director. You're right. This is my biggest passion, and it really is. And I wouldn't say not even just in the Lutheran tradition. It is someone, you can also call it spiritual friend, spiritual companion. I explain to people it is someone who is walking with you on your faith journey and is facilitating or helping you to facilitate your relationship to God or to the divine, or however you want to call this, the higher power. And I am mostly a listener in this relationship. And when I meet with directees or spiritual companions, we are always three in one room. It is me, it's the directee, and it's the Holy Spirit. And in the end, it really is the Holy Spirit who is guiding those conversations. And I have seen amazing things happening. Really, I love this. And I just help people to find a deeper connection to God, to the divine.
That's wonderful. How have you done that during these times of COVID where you couldn't meet face to face with people in person?
Mostly telephone or Zoom. So I have done also like porches of people, outside early in the morning before it got too hot here on the island, beach walks. So a little bit different than sitting across from each other and seeing each other. But it actually works. I mean, what surprised me was that the Holy Spirit is present even over the phone. It's really, you can have the same meaningful, deep conversations over a phone than you have it in person. It's possible.
That's wonderful. So if someone is interested in spiritual direction, how could they find a spiritual director in California or Pennsylvania or somewhere else in South Carolina where you are? How would they find such a person?
Of course, you can use just Google spiritual director. then you never know, obviously, maybe is it a certified spiritual director? What is the background? What kind of training have they gotten? There is an organization that is called Spiritual Directors International, and they do have so you can become a member there. They check your certification, and they have a directory where you can find, spiritual directors, where you can find me. Just recently, someone, looked for a spiritual director on Hilton Head Island, and used that organization and found me. So this is how you can find someone. And
So the name
some
of the
churches might have resources, right?
Sure. The name of the church, the name of the organization is, again, Silke?
Spiritual Directors International.
And if someone Googled that, they would come up with a website that would list local people that were certified.
Yes. Yes.
I guess it's important to be sure that the person you want to go to for spiritual direction has some sort of certification, right?
Yeah, you want. I mean, yes, I think you want to, because I mean, it's the thing with spiritual direction is, yes, you are supposed to talk about spiritual topics, about your relationship to God, to the divine. But of course, it happens that people bring their personal problems, right? I mean, it's all intertwined, I mean, there might be problems in the marriage, there might be health issues, there might be mental issues, and you need to be trained to know when you have to refer someone out. That okay, now we are encountering problems here that are not of spiritual nature anymore, or not alone anymore. I do believe that pretty much all problems have a spiritual solution, but there might be, medical issues, there might be relationship issues that a spiritual director is not trained to tackle, or mental issues. So yes, I mean, there is absolutely.
That's great. Now, talking to you, and you're in South Carolina, but you don't seem to have a Southern accent. So my guess is that you're very fluent in English, but that maybe English wasn't your first language.
No, absolutely not. And everybody who's listening in probably guesses right now that it's German. I came to America at the age of 35. So before I lived in Germany, I was born in Germany, all my family's in Germany, and I'm not going to lose this accent anymore. So my son grew up in America. He went to school here. He speaks German fluently, but he speaks German with an American accent.
Well, you speak very well. And, of course, I'm always struck by Europeans putting us in the United States to shame by their command of multiple languages when we get so used, because it's such a big country with one language, or two languages, actually, Spanish and English. But, in Europe, as you know, you run into people that speak 5, 6, and 7 languages. It's common.
Absolutely. Yeah, we learn it in school early on. English starts in elementary school.
Yeah.
And then you add a third language, in when you go to middle school. Spanish, or or French, or Chinese. Yeah.
Yes, I think that younger people around here are learning Chinese, Mandarin, and Spanish, and they seem to be the languages that you're going to need to know in business, and and anything beyond the borders of this country, for sure, and even in this country. So our theme in this program, as you know, is Hope Matters. And so what brings you hope? I mean, in your life, when you get up in the morning, how do you see hope in your life?
It really is. Hope for me is I find hope in my faith. I do. And I would not have said this, you would not have gotten this answer, all my life. So when I came here at age 35, came here because of my husband. He wanted to move to America. That was his dream. And I kind of was like, okay, let's give it a try. I wasn't too excited, and I didn't like it. I honestly, I hated it. I felt so lost here. So I wasn't happy. It wasn't good for our marriage either. So I had to find something. I had to cling to something. And after a few years, I finally remembered my Lutheran tradition. I was like, okay, maybe it's time to find a church. Maybe this will help you. And I found a Lutheran church here on the island, and I went for a Christmas Eve service, and it felt like home. It felt like in Germany, because the traditions are obviously the same. So the first time I was like, oh, there's something that feels like home. And that started a really interesting journey for me, because we became members in this church, and I became an active member right away. So you know how if somebody just reaches the little finger and they're like, oh, you're willing to help with Vacation Bible School, great. You know, we grab you and we put you to work. And then before I knew it, I joined council, I became council president, and so on. And then I joined the staff. So I have been involved really ever since. And my faith really gives me hope through a lot of trials that came, not just in my work life. Everybody who has ever worked with and for a church knows that it's not just all easy and happy and you know, so there are trials and tribulations there. And then in private life too, my husband got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 2 years ago, and within 7 months he passed away. So and that was our son was still in high school, so he hasn't even graduated yet. So and everybody asked me, how do you do this? How did you get through this? Why are you still smiling? How do you hold up? Why are you still in your office? Why are you still doing your work? And because for some reason I never felt alone in it. I did not. And I this is hard to explain, but I could feel the Holy Spirit with me. And I think the most amazing part is that this is maybe really an amazing story, that around 2017, I felt this feeling in me, I had a feeling like, you need to prepare for 2020. You need to, in 2020, you turn 50, this big 50 for me, which now a perspective is ridiculous. And my son would be 18, and he would graduate high school, and we would be at empty nesters, and he would leave, and everything would change, and the big 2020. And this is what put me on an even deeper spiritual journey to become a spiritual director. So I went in the training with the Southern Lutheran Theological Seminary in Columbia, South Carolina. And so I got deeper and deeper into it, not knowing what would come my way. Because while I was still in the training, my husband got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So we went through this really, really horrible cancer journey. It was really, really horrible. I don't wish this on anyone. And then, of course, right after he passed away in December 2019, 3 months later, we were hit with the pandemic. And my son hasn't even graduated yet. And of course, I have my own spiritual director that I'm talking to every month. And he walked very closely with me through this journey. And now we are kidding about this. He's like, look, and we talked so much about 2020 and about your fear of turning 50, and your son being, off to college. And look, this was not what you got prepared for. I thought I was, but I got prepared for a bigger whammy. And I was prepared. I was prepared. I could handle it. I came out of this fairly healthy, I would say, and hopeful, very hopeful for the future. I never lost hope.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful. So it's interesting how then hope is really tied into your spiritual direction work and your feeling of being surrounded by the Holy Spirit at all times.
Yes, I am. It's all obviously as a conscious effort. I mean, it's not like I feel this all the time. If I don't take the time every day to connect, then I do disconnect fast, and then I become my, I wouldn't say nasty ego self, but I can become a fairly pushy ego self. And when I disconnect, when I don't find the time to do the spiritual work that needs to be done every single day. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you. And thank you for being with us on Hope Matters today, Silke. I really appreciate it. It's interesting to hear your perspective on hope in your life and going through some very difficult times and still being grounded in your faith and spirituality, and then being able to share it with others. Yes. That's a gift. That's a gift.
This is what I love to do, share it with others. And and I can only recommend anybody who has any kind of, problems in this way, or everybody should have a spiritual director, honestly. Right. The world would be a better place. And thank you. The world would be a better
place. All right. Thank you for coming. This has been Hope Matters, a production of Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Santa Monica, California. I'm Pastor Eric Shafer. Our guest today has been Silke Pyrlik, who is the Director for Christian Life at Christ Lutheran Church on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, and also a certified spiritual director. and she gets through her day-to-day life surrounded by the Holy Spirit and based in the hope that we have in our faith. Thank you for being with us today, Silke.
Thank you for having me.
Tune in again next week for a new episode of Hope Matters. We produce these every week because we believe that hope matters, and we believe we have a God of hope.